Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock on this Tuesday, May 9th, 2023, and time to begin our council committee meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order and ask Ms. Kittrell to call the roll for us, please.
Vice Mayor Love.
Here.
Councilman Carter.
Present.
Councilman Fan.
Here.
Councilman Fennell.
Here.
Councilwoman George.
Here.
Councilman Hayes. And Councilman Juvance.
Present.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. There are no minutes provided this evening for your review, so we will move on to public recognition. This is the only period of public recognition for a council committee meeting. So if you'd like to speak to anything, you may do so at this time. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We ask that you introduce yourself and give us your address for the record. So right now, public recognition is now open.
Hello, my name is Renee Saunders, 2092 Rodman Boulevard, Gallatin. I just happened to be looking through the hazard mitigation document and landed on the public section that said that there were notices sent out on social media and only 3 responses were received. And I just want to say I might be the only person in America that is not on any social media. So I don't know how to start to become notified when things like this happen. I do get things from the city on email, and I got the fire department thing about sign-ups, how many pets in your house and that kind of stuff by email. So I just wonder if the next time something like this where you need resident responses comes out, that it can make sure that it comes out through some sort of email content rather than only social media. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak this evening under public recognition?
Good evening, folks. It's Patrick Reyners, 317 Malone Drive, and I wrote something here that I figured I'd read to the city, and I don't really write stuff. It says, I never was a writer or a poet, but when you speak in public, you need to learn one thing, and damn sure know it, that you can be held accountable, your criticism, and anybody that puts the city in a bad light with a lie ain't right. I mean, these people are trying to help our city. And it's hard enough to run a city, or then like, you have some things like, what is this? A person who unwisely or imprudently is silly. And that would be the definition of a fool. Causes change or direction by interposing something. That would be called deflecting. And there's something else called pathological. And that's when something is done over and over and over again to try to achieve one's goal. And says the right thing to the right people that might sound right, but isn't right, but is believable. And gets it into the public light with something like rural. If I had to look at the definition of rural, I would see that Gallatin probably in the 70s wasn't rural anymore. When I looked up rural, it was 1 person or 500 persons per square mile. So over that turned out. So I think rather than I like people to come out and say if they don't understand something, but try to change something, I guess is kind of outside. I would not look into try to change anything than what it is. A commonplace, like if you guys were to vote or whatever to do this commonplace, I found that it would be commonplace to that complex, to where the people that lived there would have common open place to where they would decide how it was open. I mean, how many trees would have to be there. It's definitely debatable. But to say the word has to be rewritten, I think it's pretty much defined the way it is. And it doesn't matter what the public thinks as long as the city approves its landscaping. I mean, if they want orange trees and you guys approve it, it doesn't matter if people like orange trees. Ask Budweiser. They went through a little marketing thing that the people decided, they make their point up. And, we don't have that around here. We got like 5 or 10 people. And I believe if I come up here and say something to you guys, I believe that you're listening. But I don't speak for the whole town. And 10 people don't speak for the whole town. So to get that misunderstanding where like some people come in to represent the whole town or whatever they do, could we have like something where maybe the people can vote to on the side to maybe see where citizens are, maybe to the agenda too, to see where you can get a real register of the people and what the people think, if that is an issue, because I don't like to see you guys be told that you're not listening by a little group of people when it's not, 40,000 people. I don't think you can say someone isn't listening or listening to the constituents because they have a lot of constituents. I just don't want that getting misunderstood. I've been to city council 4 times and they don't listen to me. They don't listen to their constituents. I don't think that's right. People shouldn't be saying that. I mean, obviously you guys are all listening. There's no one hard of hearing if you do not doing what one person says, I understand, but if you had a chart to show, that the way the people want something, just let them be able to show it maybe. And not no more lies. Because, one lady sat up here, and she was a real nice lady. First time I heard her, she said that just because I come up to the podium doesn't mean I need to hear things about it. Well, that's when you can hear things. Like when you say, I don't want to be contacted by this person. It doesn't matter. If you come into the public light and you're in a public setting like on Facebook and you say, I don't want any posts from this person, it don't matter. It does not matter. No matter who you know or who you can try to twist the rules or the laws with, as long as someone's talking to you about what you posted and lied about a city about, or misinformed people, or called whoever on it, they can do that. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hear it or not. Once you become public, you can be criticized, and it's fair, and I agree with it. Otherwise, we'd have people trampling all over everybody. Thank you all.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, public recognition is now closed. Ms. Saunders, thank you for that feedback. I think that was probably something that the county put out there, and I didn't see it either. So I didn't even realize they were requesting public feedback. So I appreciate that, and we'll keep an eye out for it and share it with our citizens when we can. So appreciate that feedback very much. We'll move on now from public recognition to mayor's comments. And the first thing under mayor's comments, I do have a proclamation to present. And for that, I'm going to ask Mr. Stewart. Anyone else from codes here? I don't think so. To join me at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Building Safety Month, and because of that, and because we have an amazing building department, we are presenting this proclamation. And it says, whereas the city of Gallatin is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential roles our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disaster strikes. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, permit associates, building and fire inspectors, plan reviewers, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of our public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Safety for All, Building Codes in Action is the theme for Building Safety Month 2023 and encourage us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe and abundant water supply to all of our benefit. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Paige Brown, do proclaim the month of November, the month of May 2023 as Building Safety Month and encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities. So that's the proclamation, but I think we all, I think you would all support me in offering our heartfelt thanks to all of those who work to make sure that our buildings are safe in our community. And as I've mentioned before, but this is a good time to mention it again, I think our building department probably does the best job of anyone in the state of Tennessee. When I go around and I meet with my contemporaries at TML or whatever, the challenges that they have in their building departments, they're unheard of in ours. And we turn around things so quickly for those who are investing in our community, and we do a great job by them. And a lot of that is a testament to your leadership, Mr. Stewart. So thank you. Do you want to say something?
I appreciate that more than you know, but my staff, they're the ones that get all the credit. We push them, we drive them, but also our public utilities, our engineering department, our planning department is all a part of this construction industry out here. So they all deserve a big hand and a pat on the back for what they do. But I can't say enough about the staff and about the support the city has given the staff. This is probably one of the top staffs in the state, if not the best staff in the state. And so we realize that and we take it very seriously. Thank you.
And then I have just a few announcements. I want to let you know that our Mayor's Caucus had a legislative update, and I was trying to think of what may be of interest to you all. And I think you're aware of a lot of the legislation, but one of the things that you may be interested in is that our state representative William Lambert did bring forward legislation to align those county primaries with the local and state and federal elections. Has to go through 3 legislative sessions to actually become law. And so it did go through very acceptably this session, and so we should see that again next year. There was also legislation opposed by a lot of us in government at the Mayor's Caucus, at the certainly at the Municipal League, regarding urban growth boundaries. And I've been working with Representative Lambert on a solution that I think makes sense with that, but that did not go anywhere this year. Of course, I've got all the information about all the investment that's happening this year in infrastructure, which is positive. I was not happy about the $3 billion going to counties and nothing to cities, but there are a lot of dollars at the state level going into road infrastructure, and so that should help us. And then there's some other things that are going on. One thing I'm really interested in is brownfield redevelopment. They're doing grants, but they're for tier 3 and 4 counties, which we don't fit into those economically challenged counties, but I'm hoping that next year they'll expand that and do some offerings on the local level. We have one particular brownfield I would like to see reclaimed. It could be very beneficial to Gallatin. And so just an interesting update from the regional level versus the one that I've been working in pretty intently at the statewide level, and then ones we've seen at the local level too, when they talked about legislative. When we had the update last month, and we'll have one this month from our state delegates on legislation from their viewpoints, and that will happen with the Chamber's Government Relations meeting. A few events I do want to share with you. The Coin Show is happening at the Civic Center this weekend. That's a popular annual event. It goes for 2 days, the 12th and the 13th. This weekend kicks off the monthly breakfast at the Music City Executive Airport. That goes from 8 till 10. This Saturday and for the next several Saturdays, there will be Miracle League games at the Miracle Park at 10 a.m. This Saturday, I think, is the first car show at the Civic Center for the season. It's the second. Mr. Brown says it's the second. That's at 6 p.m. The 16th is Chief Beeman's birthday. On the 18th, it's the Clearview Park Public Meeting, and that's happening at the Shalom Zone at 6 p.m. as they work forward the plan and the vision for the Clearview Park. The employee picnic for the City of Gallatin employees is on the 19th at Triple Creek. There's a food truck festival at the Civic Center from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. on the 20th. Also happening from Saturdays now throughout the rest of the summer is the Gallatin Farmers Market Day. Happens every Saturday from 9 to 1. And then coming up on the 21st, just prior to Memorial Day, is the Decoration Day at the Gallatin City Cemetery. It's 2 to 3:30. It's an opportunity to go out there, get a little bit of history, help improve the aesthetics of some of the grave sites, and enjoy some fellowship and music. It's a really neat event that we started several years ago that continues. On the 24th is Councilman Fennell's birthday. And then on the 27th is opening day for the Tommy Garrett Aquatics Facility. And I know there's lots of youngsters looking forward to that. So that concludes Mayor's comments, and will take us now to the regular agenda. And we'll begin with the ordinance number 02305-34, appropriating funds in the total amount of $400,000 from water sewer reserves and natural gas reserves for roof repairs and replacement. Mr. Kellogg.
Brown, council, this is an ordinance to appropriate $200,000 from water and sewer reserves and $200,000 from natural gas reserves to replace the roof on our administration building. It's about 23 years old. We're starting to develop leaks in it, and the roof company says it's time to be replaced. And it's also another, our service center roof. They're going to make some repairs to it, replace the skylights, correct some leaks that we have in it as well.
Motion by Councilman Fennell, second by Councilman Hayes. Any questions, any discussion?
Roof? One on ours is asphalt with the gravel, and the one on the other one is just a standing seam.
So a lot of square foot on the big one?
Yeah.
My question, I'm sorry, $94.50 an hour is the labor rate for a roofer?
It's a contract, Omnia contract. Lyndon Satterfield is the one that kind of coordinated that. I don't know a lot about roofs, so I'll let somebody who knows about roofs kind of coordinate that.
Roofing sounds like a good job to get into. $94.50 an hour.
About right.
Wow.
You're probably not taking that home, but.
No. I figured that.
Anyone else? Mr. Simmons?
David, I got told there were a leak on the front. That's going to fix everything.
Leak on the front.
Yeah, on the front of the building.
Well, there are multiple leaks in our office building, so there's probably 7 or 8 offices that have wet spots in the ceiling. We've had a company come in and make temporary repairs, and they're just advising us it's time to correct that. And then the other building, we've also had them make some temporary repairs. This one, they're going to replace all the screws, the skylights, all the penetrations in the roof, and correct all the leaks.
These flat roofs,
Ours is a flat roof and the warehouse is a pitched roof.
common sense tells you 23 years, it's time to replace it.
For the leaks. Anyone else? All right, voting's moved forward to ordinance 02305-34. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does move forward unanimously.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is ordinance 02305-31, appropriating funds in the amount of $75,000 for AFG grant.
Thank you, Mayor. As you said, this ordinance is to appropriate the funds for an Assistance of Firefighter grant that we applied for in December of 2021, and we were awarded, got the notification of award in February of 23. And after reviewing the notice of funding opportunity, we determined the best item to apply for was gear extractors. And what this does, this allows us to decontaminate our turnout gear and other uniform items after exposure at a hazardous incident. We're going to follow the city's bidding policies for this, which we've already sent out for a competitive bid for the gear extractors that will include installation. And now we're trying to appropriate the funds, and the city will be responsible for 10% of the final cost of the project. The project cannot exceed $75,000.
Motion send on.
Second.
Again,
Okay, motion by Councilman Fennell, second by Councilwoman George. Does that sound right? Okay. Okay, this is ordinance 02305-31. All in favor of moving forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item 3 is
I have a
resolution.
question,
I'm sorry?
I had a question.
Okay.
Are we talking about just extractor or extractor and dryer?
Well, sir, for the turnout gear, we don't dry those. They're just your manufacturer suggests for air drying, but we also have dryers for clothes and other personal items in each fire station.
Thank you, Chief.
Item number 3 is Resolution R2304-37. Resolution to authorize the Gallatin Fire Department to apply for the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation 3Q 2023 grant. Mr. Beam, Chief Beaman.
Thank you, Mayor. The fire department's requesting authorization from council to apply for the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation third quarter 2023 grant. This grant's up to $50,000 with no matching funds from the city.
Motion to send it on.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Love, second by Councilman Hayes. Any questions? Anyone? Okay, this is Resolution R2304-37. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. That's an easy one with no matching funds. Item 4, Resolution R2305-42, to adopt the Sumner County Hazard Mitigation Plan. Chief Beaman.
Every 5 years, we have to adopt a hazard mitigation plan, our community does, and we've done this in conjunction, at least back in 2017, with Sumner County government and the other local governments, along with Volunteer State Community College in Sumner County, and we've developed a Sumner County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And what this does, this identifies the natural hazards in the county, and it allows us to identify mitigating efforts to reduce the effects of those disasters within our area. And it also provides a grant funding mechanism for that from several different sources. To qualify for the grant funding, though, we have to adopt a plan. You currently have the draft plan in front of you, and I'm hoping before the next full meeting of council to provide you the final document from TEMA. TEMA was the author of this plan, and we're going through the adoption process. The windstorm that we experienced a couple of months ago slowed things down slightly for us and refocused the efforts of both TEMA, Sumner County EMA, and even the city on these efforts. The current plan expires in July of 2023.
Thank you. Chief Beaman, does EMA take the lead on this and getting
Yes,
data
ma'am.
to
EMA coordinated this with
coordinate
TEMA.
and
Yes, ma'am.
FEMA creates it? Okay, question.
Motion to send it on.
Okay, motion by Councilman Hayes.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman George. Any questions, any discussion? Mr. Schwanz?
Thank you, ma'am. You already answered my first question. I was going to ask you if that was a final document or a draft, so I know it's a draft. I think there's a lot of information on that document, and I hope that would be implemented, and that would just not be a study, it was going to be on the shelf. So I'm looking forward to the final one. Like I said, there's plenty of interesting things about land use and development. I'm pretty sure you all read it, so I'm not going to go through the detail. But there's few parts where we are on a red and yellow. So on, risk and vulnerability assessment, flooding, and on tornadoes. So what's your take on that, and how can we make it better to get on the green side?
So when you look at the risk, a lot of that involved what the impact would be to the community, what resources would be needed to assist us. The green was minimal, yellow was we would need some moderate resources, and of course the red risk was a heavy risk where it would require significant outside resources to help us mitigate and respond and recover from the event. With flooding, this county has a history of flooding, and in many instances it required some local and then some outside agencies at the state level to allow us to respond and mitigate to that. And of course, tornado, when you look at a tornado and the devastating effects from that, and it all depends on the weather pattern and the impact on the community, we lean towards the greater side of the impact than trying to minimize what the impact would be on the community when we rated that. And also understand this was through a collaborative effort, but when we got to the risk levels of the different events across the county, it was by consensus and not necessarily exactly what we identified the risk level at, but by consensus of the group that was tabulated by TEMA.
Right. just a comment on page 74. It's the figure 25 is unreadable. So that's probably a printing issue and a scanning issue. So if I would like that to be readable on a,
Mr. Juvance, is that the project prioritization method safety table?
yeah.
Did that not print correctly? And I apologize if it did not.
Yeah, it's the project prioritization method, safety, yeah.
I apologize for not printing correctly. I'm looking at it here in the attachment. I don't know from computer to print that it might have jumbled up, and I
Might
apologize
do
for that.
black and white instead of grayscale, have Angela do black and
That,
white instead of
that
grayscale.
could be that as well, too. Prior to asking the council for the adoption in the full meeting, I will have the final draft of the plan for you, the completed plan.
And
74?
In the document, if you look at page 74 in your work session agenda,
That's
it would be page
page
88 in
88.
your work session agenda.
74 looks fine. 88 looks fine.
Last two blocks
Oh.
on the chart.
I see. Well, yeah, it's a little dark.
Other question, who would be responsible of the implementation of all the recommendation? That's going to be at our level or that's going to be at county level?
Yes, sir. For the projects identified by each locality, that the locality is responsible for implementing those projects. And then at the same time, though, applying for the funding, though, will be a partnership through TEMA. Most of the funds are 75-25 grants. However, TEMA takes it a step further, and for that 25% match for the local level, TEMA will provide 50% of that match as well. So in reality, it's only 12.5% that the city would be responsible for any of the identified projects.
Thank you. You answered my next question, so I appreciate that. And there is another thing you say that implementation and maintenance of the plan is critical to the overall success of hazard mitigation planning and action. So, I mean, we need to implement, and there is a clear path for there. We tell us what we have to do and the years we have to do it. So, I would like to see if we can amend the resolution to include a time frame on the resolution to make sure we actually go through it. So after the council everybody adopts, blah, 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 the plan as an official plan agrees to implement the recommendation of the plan in a 5 years time frame after adoption of this resolution.
Bringing it back to us next week, is it?
Well, I think what he's saying, I'm not real sure, but I think he's saying he wants everything mitigated within a 5-year time frame. And I don't know, a lot of this is about identifying the hazards so that we have a path for applying for grants to receive the money to be able to mitigate those hazards. I mean, to think that we're going to be able to fund everything is probably not realistic. I mean, I haven't sat here.
Some of the things that we did identify is the competitiveness level of the grants. And we tried to keep the projects that would stay at the state level grants where we're only competing with other entities in the state and not on a national level. That way we have a greater chance and greater opportunity of funding here for the projects that we have identified.
Trying to look at the ones that are specific to the Gallatin.
Yeah, the majority of the ones specific to Gallatin are between 3 and 5 years. came with the 5 years.
Now, like property acquisition of RL, SRL properties, that's not realistic within 5 years.
Mayor, if it'll help, it starts on page 76 of the plan.
What now?
The table for,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
okay, it's page 76 of the plan. And that lists all the entities that participated in the process. So you'll have to look at the second column over to identify the locality that could be responsible for that project.
Okay, so maybe, okay, property acquisition of RL, SRL properties. What is RLSL by this? 'Cause I was thinking floodplains and floodways, or floodways, I guess. It would be that first item. It has a cost estimate of $300,000, but I'm knowing that the properties that we have that are in danger of flooding would go way into the many, many, many millions.
Yes, ma'am.
But
Mr.
do we
McCord?
know what the definition of,
Mayor, if it's okay, I'm going to phone a friend as well.
for me?
I'm going to phone a friend as well. Director McCord will also participate in the process, and he can help with the flooding area and the land questions.
I'm sure it's in here. I just gotta go back and find the.
Yeah, I was trying to bring that up on my phone. Just the chart you're
We should
referring
get
to.
the question, is this one here, this first one, RLSRL properties? I can't remember what the acronym's for now.
I think it has to do with repeat events, with properties that have had multiple flooding events. So there's a program that allows for the city to make application for grants to acquire some of those multiple event properties. I think in 2000, I'm gonna say 11, there was properties acquired at Steam Plant Road at the railroad tracks there. And so these properties that have multiple flooding events, obviously they're expensive to continue to insure, so there are programs that allow for the cities to participate with the federal agencies to acquire those, federal and state agencies to acquire those properties. And I believe also this would be an opportunity, this program, the city's already well underway with the study with the Corps of Engineers to construct improvements that would reduce the magnitudes of floods. So, for example, the dry dam that would be built at Triple Creek Park might be an eligible activity there that would need to be identified in this plan to be able to acquire the grant funds.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Are you all okay with moving forward as it is right now?
Yes.
Let's vote on whether to move forward resolution R2305-42. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We'll unanimously move forward to the council meeting. Item 5 is resolution R2305-43. To approve private chapter 8 of the 113th General Assembly amending City of Gallatin Charter, Article 3, Section 1, Article 4, Section 2A, Article 7, Section 1, Article 10, Sections 1, 2, 5, and 6. Ms. Hy McCauley, City Attorney.
Yes, this resolution is necessary. As you recall, back in the, earlier this year, this council asked the legislature to amend our charter and specifically to allow governing bodies to serve in appointed offices, changing the city recorder from elected to an appointed position, adding the city judge as a separate office to be appointed, and just cleaning up some of the sections related to city recorder and city judge duties. The General Assembly did pass that, and they have sent it back to us. Now, we must pass that by 2/3 vote to make those charter changes become effective. And so that is what this resolution is for.
Motion to send it on.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Vice Mayor Love. Are there any questions, any discussion? Mr. Chubans.
Thank you, ma'am. I still don't like the idea of having people who are elected, appointed, all the judges are appointed, and are elected, we're gonna appoint one. When we will be starting that, and is that gonna be this year? Are you planning on getting a
It can't
judge this
become,
year?
it can't become effective until this term of the city recorder, because she was elected for a 4-year term.
Okay, so not
So it will
before
not
4
become
years.
effective until she completes that term.
Okay.
Okay, this is Resolution R2305-43. All in favor of moving it forward to the council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, it passes 6-1. Item number 6 is ordinance 02305-36. Ms. Hy McCauley, amending Gallatin Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 4, Section 2-93, General Rules of Order. Ms. Hy McCauley.
Yes, I am coming before you tonight asking for an amendment to the municipal code, and this relates to our general rules of order. I was at a seminar recently, and it was related a lot to land use, but also to governing bodies. And in that seminar, it was recommended that governing bodies that have adopted Robert's rules consider either adopting other rules of general procedure or limiting them in some way. And that's what I have brought for you tonight. I've brought actually an ordinance to amend, and basically we will adopt Robert's rules as for the orderly, as guidance for the orderly and efficient transaction of business brought before the city council at its meetings, to the extent they're not inconsistent with our charter or code. And then I've added, in no event shall Robert's Rules of Order cause any action of the city council to be null and void or to otherwise supplant any action of the city council. And I'll tell you that in this seminar that I went to, we discussed, various things about what you should adopt. There's no Tennessee court that has ruled that Robert's Rules would supplant any action of a governing body. There are some other states. And my concern is that years down the road, someone could go through and, if they're opposed to something, come back and say, look and say, well, somebody said the wrong word when they were making a motion, and now that's null and void, and that could affect something 20 years ago. I've seen a case of another state where that happened, and that is my concern. So I've drafted an ordinance, but I'm also asking for your guidance as to whether you want to do it this way or if you want to have your own rules. And I'll tell you, honestly, Robert's Rules is intended for very large assemblies, and it's meant to keep the meetings running effectively and efficiently. And there's actually a part of Robert's Rules that probably govern what we do, because it's for small bodies under 12, which is what this body is. I think, honestly, it's a little bit too informal because we are a governing body of taxpayers. Under those rules, you don't even require a second for any motion. I don't
So we don't want to do that.
I don't think we want to do that. And you still would have to pass it by majority, but I just think it's a little too informal. So I'm good with either taking those more informal rules and making them a little bit more formal, and we can have our own rules, or adopting Robert's Rules for guidance. And I'll also point out that Robert's Rules only apply to our council meetings and not to these work sessions currently.
I thought we already followed Robert's rules.
We do. That's what I'm saying. We are going to restrict that so that in the future, what you're doing here can't be challenged. I don't think it's the intent when everyone votes unanimously on something, that if someone said the wrong word, that the taxpayers would see that it was a good resource for us to get into protracted and extended litigation about whether or not, that is a null and void action of this body. And so what we're saying is, rather than we're adopting them as our general rules of order, we're saying they provide guidance for the transaction of your business, but they will never be used to supplant the actions of this body.
Because the intended actions are clear, but you shouldn't be able to void those based on some misstep according to Robert's Rules. So I think it's fine to have Robert's Rules as our guiding rules. I think we pretty much do that with the work session as well, so I don't mind that can, be true there too. but appreciate you looking into it and
Oh,
finding
really?
Makes sense.
a path forward. Anyone else?
I know what you're talking about because I brought it to you, so it's kind of interesting that the way to fix things,
No, this was brought to me at a seminar that I went to.
no, but the issue null and void on the use of Robert's rule, I actually brought it to you on the resolution 220651. It's already there, so I don't know why we would change it except the null and void thing. So if the rules are there, they're to be followed. That's $15, okay? That's good. That's good reading. And yeah, you can laugh at it.
I'm not laughing at all. I mean, it's not like we haven't heard of these before.
Yeah, it's good reading. So
Yes, it is.
and you should be familiar with it. And
I am very familiar
That's why
with it.
we have you. I'm going to stop there. And Susan, that's why you're here to correct us if we do something wrong. So I don't see why we would change stuff. The stuff would change. Was interesting that we went from, if we change of what you just wrote, we went from shall govern the transaction of business to provide guidance. Okay, so provide guidance, I mean, we don't have to follow it. It's just a guidance.
Mr. Juvance, as an example, if we're following Robert's rules precisely, once you comment on something, you should be finished unless someone debates you on it. We don't do that. But
You can only speak once. There are a lot of things under Robert's rules that we
We're
don't
not following
follow.
Robert's rules exactly as it is written, but we are generally following the guidance that it provides. And so if we want to have a sergeant of arms who corrects us on every misstep according to Robert's rules, that's one thing. But if we're just trying to do the business of our citizens and do it well and do it right, I think Ms. Hamacali's proposal is a very strong one.
I agree.
Well, and I'll tell you the reason that I'm bringing it is because I went to a seminar, it was recommended, and I am, part of my job responsibilities and duty is risk management for this city. And I think this protects the city better than what we currently have, and that's why I've brought this forward.
I think it's fine the way it is. I'm okay with putting it on a work session too, but like you said, Mayor, we're already doing it. So I don't see why we change things and just.
I'll make a motion to send it on.
Second. Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fan. Anyone else wishing to comment or ask questions? Okay, this is to move resolution, ordinance 02305-36 forward to council meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no.
No.
6-1. Item number 7 is discussion on amending zoning ordinance to require open space or common open space. Mr. McCord, city planner, to discuss this.
Bill McCord, City Planner. I was asked to schedule this item by the council at the last meeting and to discuss common open space. And we have a couple of places in the zoning code where we require open space. In some districts, we do not require open space. And in the subdivision regulations, it kind of alludes to that. It doesn't necessarily call it open space. Normal process, if you're interested in pursuing a change in the code to change what we have in the code or add to it, would be to refer this to the Planning Commission. Be glad to answer questions if you have any.
I wasn't here last week or so. I wasn't a part of any discussion, but I have wondered before why we are allowed to call creeks and things that are unusable as open space and use those.
Well, their creeks are usable, and they may not be usable for certain types of activities, but they're very important part of the development community, and they're the natural portion of the community, which is extremely important. Nick could probably tell you a whole lot about our stormwater systems and how the city is trying to hone in and create if you will, an informal linear park system that is built around our natural environment, mainly the creeks. So they serve an important function as well. Our greenway that goes out to Triple Creek Park follows the creek. So it's incorporating those natural features into a active recreation program where possible. So they do, they're very important. They're probably more important than just an open field that you have in the community is serving it for open space. So open space should not be considered an active recreation, a ball field or something of that sort, of parking lot in many cases. It's really the more effective open space for sustainability of the ecosystem is reserved in these open space tracts that contain creeks, floodways.
Thank
It's
you.
my,
I'm sorry.
just thinking, thank you.
It's my opinion that you cannot really define open space because it's it can be anything to anyone. I mean, open space can be a vista. Open space can be land. Open space can be a cemetery. There's so many variations that if we define something one way only, that's way too ambiguous for us to, define. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me to define it.
We have a term called common open space in our zoning code, which is in the definition section. So, but that basically refers to properties that are owned by a public or private entity, in the cases of homeowners association, that are used for common purposes. And that could be a retention pond, that could be a creek floodway, that could be a buffer zone, that could be a basketball court or pickleball court nowadays, I suppose.
Go ahead.
My only thing is to pass on to the planning commission is, I'm really concerned about open space being usable open space, making sure some of these developments they include that. Just Saturday, going into a part of my neighborhood that I didn't really know that existed, but I come across a basketball court that was lined with pine trees and a small pickleball court. And if we put these big neighborhoods in, I just want to make sure there's some type of common ground that maybe kids can go out there and throw football in. Something, maybe a little basketball court like it's designed over in my part of the woods. I'm really interested in that. I want to make sure that we have that try to put that into some of these large developments. That's my only issue with it.
I don't think we've seen any large developments that aren't putting like really compelling amenities in there.
I remember
Some
back
of the
in the
smaller
day-
developments, not so
I
much.
remember back in the day when we had some developments that got approved and they were supposed to put amenity center in or a swimming pool or whatnot. Then all of a sudden, several years after that, they come back there and took that space away and turned around and put it into a buildable lot. And I'm not saying that's happening, but I did see that
I don't
happening.
think, it's platted
I mean,
an hour.
think about this, Craig, when we grew up in our neighborhood, there was green space out there. We'd always meet and have football games or basketball games or whatnot. And I just want to make sure some of these developments.
But back then, it was probably just an undeveloped lot based on the neighborhood I grew up in. But now it's actually platted in development so that it
I
can't
just want to make sure
become,
that we've got plenty of
yeah,
it.
it can't become a developed lot at some point. Certainly.
Yeah, Bill, we just got passed out a handout. Have you seen this?
No, I did.
I know,
No, I
I
didn't.
don't like
I didn't
blindsiding
read,
department heads. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're passing it out. It's the first time we've seen it. He hasn't seen it, so
No, sir, I haven't seen it.
No, I did it for you guys.
I know. And what you're saying is it would have to go back to planning commission?
If there's changes that you want them to focus on, we can certainly direct that and make that part of the discussion with the planning commission.
Okay, I mean, and that's my point. I know it got brought up by Councilman Javance that, hey, we need to change. I don't know why he didn't go meet with you, talk to him about this, come up with something. Because we could sit here for 3 days and talk about this, and it has to go back to planning commission. That's my point about this.
What we're trying to do is actually come up with Gallatin's definition of open space. Is that
Yes.
what we're trying to do?
Or change it and refine it, maybe get a little more elaborate, maybe assign it to other zoning districts. We do have, most of our master plan residential districts, plan residential zones require a minimum amount of open space percentage. That doesn't apply to all zoning districts. It only applies to those in the master plan with the plan residential development district.
I don't know if everyone on the council is aware, but we are, Mr. McCord especially and Mr. Tuttle, they are working on an overhaul of the zoning ordinance where everything is, and there's a consultant that's going to be helping to do that. And so that is something, I don't know what your time frame is on that.
Would like to fold that into the subdivision scope and have that for the mayor for consideration. I'd like to do it by the end of May, but I know that there are other fires that pop up almost daily that divert me from that schedule. So as long as other things get assigned to me that are considered more pressing, that kind of delays those things. But perhaps by
Well,
June.
I was thinking that some of the discussion last week, and this is just my recollection, so it could be wrong, was about defining open space and what qualified as open space. And I remember thinking, you know, that there has to be some generally accepted standard, you know, what do creeks fall in that? Do ponds fall in that? Do wetlands fall in that? Do flood space? So, I mean, that would,
Essentially, the leftover lands that are being subdivided that do not include public rights-of-way and in private lots. So you got the buffer zones, the stormwater retention facilities, the recreation areas set aside by the developers. Those all end up being common open space under the definition. What you might consider usable open space, some of that can be made usable or is usable. You mentioned the creek. When I was a kid, that was a great place to play. We dammed up the creeks and we looked for crawdads, and, you know, that was an education in itself, so.
wouldn't you be in trouble now? Well, maybe the disconnect is then the usable open space versus the non-usable open. I don't know, I'm just
I
thinking. out
mean,
loud.
you're basically saying without that consultant,
When is the consultant going to, you said end of May, but I can't imagine the consultant's going to have all the recommendations by then.
Oh, no. Once there is a contract signed, it would be a good year to 18 months before draft product would be available for the planning commission to review. And the planning commission be involved in that throughout the development of the project, but it's going to take a while.
Do we have a definition of usable open space now? that
But we do not.
Pardon?
We do not. We have a common open space definition.
What I pass you is to save you some time, because I think that's one of my concern is that on new development I've seen popping up that the open space, it's not usable. So, and I will email you a copy, Bill. But basically I went over Tennessee. I took cities around us, and cities were the same kind of population, and took their definition of open space and put it on a paper so you can see what other people are doing. And it's all over the place. So it's not just one definition. Every city has your own stuff. Some like Franklin had the full chapter to define open space. And I put you a copy of one of the pages at the end where they actually have graphics and different definition. And so everybody has a stuff, but I think we have the chance here to do something to be an example, to have development who actually look like something people want to live in and not just come here because they have no choice. And I have few in my district where I would not live in, honestly. And where the open space got away from what I should have been. You know, when I was joking last week about the cemetery who served as open space on that development, that's all they have. They have nothing else. So road for me is not an open space. A retention pond, it's utility, that should not be counted as open space. But that's what's used to basically pack everything in and, again, defer what the intent was by using that as open space. And now, you know, the density changed because a third of the property is going to be retention pond, and another third of the property is going to be all the housing. And even if it's 3 or 4 per acre on a paper, when you look at the density, it's not. So I think there's something to be done there, and we should really look into it. But that should be done now, not in 2 years of, you know, a year and a half, 2 years, because where are we going to be in 2 years? So I did that to save you some time, and you can read it if you want, and everything is in there, so I didn't change anything. So there is staff who say retention pond are counted as open space, and there is some who say it should not be. But we need to do something.
What does this body want to do with this? We've discussed it, so.
I was just wanting to pass on a thought to, ultimately, it's going to have to go to the planning commission.
Has to start at the planning commission, so.
It's just something I was interested in.
I second that.
With this discussion? Okay, I guess that concludes the agenda, and we will move on to other business. There are several items that we have to bring up under other business. One thing was brought up last week, and it was to be on the work session. Is it supposed to be on the work session this week? Anyway, it was supposed to be on today's agenda. It was not, which is the authorization for the Gallatin PD to apply for the federal COP staffing grant. And I think that this is something that we need to, Chief Andy.
My apologies for it not being on the agenda, but yes, this is Resolution 2305-44. We discussed it last week. We're just asking authority to apply for the COPS staffing grant.
Motion, send on.
Again.
Okay, motion by Councilman Fennell, second by Vice Mayor Love. Any discussion on this? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you, Chief Bandy. I
Thank you.
apologize for not noticing it wasn't on the agenda. Also, related to us passing item number 5 on to the council meeting, I want to ask this body if you all would be okay with going ahead next week and adding the appointment to the Resource Authority on there. Because remember, we lost our member on the Resource Authority when all that came up. And so the Resource Authority has been anxiously awaiting a member representative from the city of Gallatin for this to be.
Yes.
So if somebody wanted to make a motion to put that on the agenda for next week.
Motion to put it on the agenda next week.
Motion by Councilwoman George, second by Councilman Fennell. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will add that to the agenda next week. Ms. Hamakali, you have something, that one is done. Also wanted to update this body that right now with the 4th of July, we do not have a nonprofit organization organizing a festival like we have in the past. Right now, it's looking like it's just going to be fireworks. I do want to get with Mr. Brown and see if maybe after the food truck rally next week, see how that goes and see if that might be an option for the 4th of July. And I'm sure the fire department would want to still continue to do their foam, but I don't see anyone actually setting up a festival with vendors and the music and that kind of thing. It's just, no one's willing to do that.
Can we brought up about the survey of the parks. Can we get somebody just to call them and see where they're at with this?
We have been, we're trying to set a meeting date at this time. We have heard from them. We've been corresponding with them. So I thought, I'd said I was available yesterday, then they weren't. So I think we're still trying to nail down a meeting time.
I might ask, can I ask David something too, please?
Okay, just,
I can ask him after the meeting.
that'd be, yeah, I mean, just based on my request before that we not
That'd be fine.
blindsiding department head, I appreciate it. Any questions about 4th of July, any ideas? Anybody want to take it on as their personal project? That was a loud laugh, Ms. George, you're contemplating, I can tell. Okay, so there's that. And I believe that Mr. Tuttle has an update on, it's kind of just for your information on Lock 4. And then Ms. Hy McCauley has the situation too to share.
Yeah, I was just going to pass along under the department head reports time, a couple of updates on projects that are happening right now. The Lock 4 Road Greenway project, folks that live out in that area along that corridor should have gotten some letters last week saying that surveyors were going to be out in the area. And so over the next few weeks, you'll see surveyors in the area, and they should be well marked and look like they're supposed to be there and carrying letters from us saying that that's what they're doing. So hopefully it won't alarm anyone, but did want to give you a heads up on that. We've got a couple of other projects that are in construction. The ITS Phase 1 is at a point where they're burning in, which is part of the process of getting the fiber connected and tested. And so we're very close, within a few weeks of that being online, and begin to do some testing and moving things along with getting the coordination like it should be. And then the last thing that I wanted to update you with was the National Pike Sidewalk project there that is in front of the old Kroger Market, not Marketplace, but shopping center there. And they're moving along, and that contractor has done a really great job of really maintaining access for the shopping center. And I wanted to publicly say that I appreciate that, because they could have done some things to make things a lot worse. And so there will be some intermittent closures on some of those entrances, but they've done a really great job, and I expect for them to continue. And they've got just about a month left on that project, and they should be wrapping up. So we'll have a nice connected sidewalk along National Pike from Belvedere Drive all the way back into town. So that's really good. That's all I had.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, anyone else with any other, Ms. Hy McCauley, sorry.
I actually have two items. I received an email late this afternoon from Ashley's Place. If you remember, we entered into a new lease with them, and that lease requires them to notify the city of any leasehold improvements that they are going to make, and then the city must consent to those improvements in writing. So I was just going to bring to you tonight to let you know that they have received the funding, and she did discuss this. The executive director discussed this with you when we were here discussing the lease. They are planning to do three things with the funding they've received. They're planning to remove a large tree that's right in the center, and there's a concern it's going to fall in the building, so they're going to remove that tree. They are going to replace the roof, and they're going to replace the siding. And so they have provided me with notice of those things, and I would just like a voice vote of confirmation from this body that you are okay with those things, so I can confirm to her in writing that they may proceed.
Yes.
And is there a motion?
Yeah, let's do a motion.
Motion
Motion by Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fennell, all in favor of approving their improvements that they're doing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
Okay, and then I have one other thing that has come to my attention recently, and planning may know more about this than I do, but I had an owner's attorney reach out to me. There is an owner in town whose land was annexed into the city in 1965, and evidently at that time, they annexed things differently than we annex things, and they've been paying taxes on almost 35 acres, 34.8 8 acres. And it appears from that ordinance that actually only 10 acres were annexed, but they've been paying property taxes on all 35 since 1965. And this is near Hatton Track, and they are going to be doing some development. I don't know what they are planning to do, but they're going to be doing some development out there, and they were asking us, how are we going to correct that and rectify that? And we are, by law, if we were going to refund them, we could only refund back 10 years. And so it's my opinion that the right thing to do would be for the city to annex the property with consent of the property owner, which of course they're willing to give, but the city would actually be the applicant, because it has been assumed that, and mainly this is through a creek bed and some other things. I don't know that it's usable land, as we've been speaking about, but it's not in the city. It does but I believe this is right, Mr. McCord, Mr. Tuttle, the Nexus property, is that correct? On the other side of the creek, yes. So before Mr. McCord or anyone filled out an application, I wanted to talk with this body to see what you want to do with that.
So this came to light because they were ready to do something with it.
Yes, and I guess when they were surveying, their surveyor is the one that caught it. And so they came forward to us and told us, look, we've been paying, we thought all of this was annexed in 1965. Evidently, whoever wrote the annexation ordinance at that time didn't follow the property line and just drew a straight line. And they were under the impression that all of it had been annexed into the city in 1965, and they have been paying taxes on it.
And so
since
really,
that time.
what she is proposing is, to kind of make things right with them, is us being the ask for the annexation, get their approval, and it becomes a much smoother process for them that costs them less money, less time, and less work if this body's willing to do that. So that's where we are.
So they don't want more, anything monetarily other than just annexing?
Really just cleaning up their property.
Well, I'm sure they would like to have all their money back, but we can't legally do that. And so when I was talking with them, because they were going to ask for annexation, and they wanted their money back, I said, well, we can't legally, we can go back 10 years, and that is it under the law. I came up with a solution that the city be the applicant to do the annexation, and that we would kind of carry the ball for them. They would consent, and that we would go forward that way.
We would not pay them anything.
Correct. We would not pay them anything.
So you need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, make a motion.
Second.
Councilman Hayes, second by Councilman Fan. Discussion on this, questions? Okay, all in favor of moving that forward, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, passes unanimously. Of course, I don't know what moving that forward looks like. I'm
Well-
guessing it won't be on next week's agenda. I'm
No,
guessing
I
it'll
don't
be on
even
a
know. I mean,
work
Mr.
session in the future.
Mr. McCord will, I don't know, that will be Mr. McCord's project.
We will look for it in the future.
We have had a pre-application meeting with the property owner and the representative, so we anticipate that they would be submitting an application here soon. We can inform them that the council has authorized the city to be the applicant only for the annexation part.
Correct, and just for
Not the
these
zoning part.
acres that were not in the city, yes.
Okay.
Y'all finished with Mr. Ford? Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Fennell?
I think I know the answer to this, but the grass that's between the sidewalk and the curbing of the street, who is responsible to cut that?
Well, it is typically going to be the property owner, but there are probably some places where we are having to mow it because otherwise it doesn't get mowed.
There's some places out there that really look good, but you guys go out front of the Legacy Inn over there, we got 4-foot tall thorn bushes growing up right there on Gallatin Road. Look at that. I mean, there's just a few places, and the people that are taking
There,
care
that's kind of their, are you talking about the median, or are you talking about their landscape areas in front of the inn?
The grass between the sidewalk and the street. I mean, there's a few, I mean, a lot of people do take care of it, and I notice stuff like that, but we do have some parking lots in some of those areas that it's just getting out of hand. It's awful. It's embarrassing. But another thing I want to say,
You can always send an email to Jessica Jackson, Jennifer Dunbar, because sometimes I'm not sure whether it should be a planning or a property enforcement issue, and they get right on stuff.
okay. Another thing is trees. You know, I feel that I look at Hendersonville and I see some of their green space. I see that they have planted a lot of trees. I would just like to say that some of our walking trails, one on Browns Lane, there's some trees that I think need to be planted in that area. Some of the medias in between Gallatin Road, I would like to see some trees planted there. I'm just that's my opinion, but I'd just like to throw that out there.
We have a tree preservation staff in our ordinance. It's on you can read it, it's on a paper I gave you. There's a full chapter.
Okay, and then the only other item of other business that I have is I want to let you know that Ms. Russell has been working with Ms. Russell, and Ms. Russell, who will be coming into HR, will be starting on Monday. So thanks to both Ms. Russell very much, and particularly Ms. Jill Russell, who's with us here tonight. We appreciate your help so much. That's my last item of other business. Is there anyone else on this council that has something?
Hey, Mayor Brown, I was just checking with someone about the 4th of July festival. Does the city provide financial assistance to help with that?
No, we fund the fireworks.
Fireworks, okay. All right, no problem. Thank you.
But several different nonprofits have over the years sponsored the festival as a fundraiser for their organization.
Okay.
It's hard, and it takes a whole lot of volunteers, and that's why they typically come in. They try it for a year, 2, 3. I think 4 is probably the record, and then they figure out that it's really hard, and it's hard to get people to volunteer on the 4th of July. So.
Gotcha. All righty.
Mr. Jamont, you had something?
Yes, ma'am. Below, Susan, update on the traffic study changes.
It is moving forward. I don't know if Mr. Tuttle or Mr. McCord want to speak, but there have been emails. I know that Mr. Tuttle is working with, I believe, a consultant, and it's moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to bring that again. I haven't talked about that for a few months, but the fork at Longolo and Harris Lane, you guys heard that for years and years and years. People still make illegal left turn down there, so the fork didn't fix anything. And now the people make a right turn, use private property entry as a U-turn lane. So they basically turn right and make a U-turn at the entry of Lazy J to go back to the left side, and that entry start to be destroyed. So we need to do something because now it's impacting private property. That fork doesn't work. People don't follow it. That's been an issue from day one. So I think it's TDOT who's in charge of that, but why don't we get to TDOT and ask them to remove it or something, because that doesn't work. That creates more problems than anything else. So I would appreciate if we have another look at that and see if we can fix it.
Anyone else with any other business this evening? Department head reports?
Real quick, I just want the council to be aware that at 8 o'clock tonight on public radio station WPLN, there is a discussion on the program Fresh Air called Paved Paradise, which is a book written by Henry Gruber about the parking situation and how our cities are transforming or not transforming because of our desire for parking. I encourage you to listen to this. I hope you have time. It's about 45 minutes to spend and listen to that. I think it'll bring a lot of insight, and it's going to be incumbent upon this city, in my opinion, for y'all to become more involved in the details of the design aspects of what's going on in the city as it's growing the way it is. So this is a great opportunity. You don't have to, all you have to do is listen. So I encourage you to do that. It begins at 8 o'clock or shortly after 8 o'clock. Hopefully we'll be done by then here.
Thank you, Mr. McCord. Any other department heads? Seeing none. Just need a motion, folks.
Motion adjourned.
Councilman Fennell, second by Councilman Hayes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. I hope you have a lovely evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, be kind to one another.
David, get off.